Nia had never considered herself close to her father's friends. The men her father brought to their house always seemed to her to be people from another world. They discussed business, politics, and other adult topics that she was not interested in. However, she always showed respect for them, knowing that her father valued his company highly. However, everything changed when Marcus, her father's longtime friend, reappeared in their lives. Marcus was a family friend whom Nia remembered from childhood. Her memories of him were hazy. He came when she was a little girl, sometimes played simple games with her, or asked her about school. But then, a few years ago, he disappeared from their social circle. She had heard that Marcus had moved to another city for work, but now he had returned and was invited to a family event hosted by her father. It was a regular summer gathering, an evening gathering in the backyard of their house with lots of guests, music and a barbecue. Nia's father loved such events, gathering all his old friends and acquaintances to discuss the news and just have a good time. Nia never had high hopes for such meetings, expecting that it would just be another evening when she would have to pass the time among the older generation. But this evening turned out to be different. When Marcus entered the garden, Nia immediately noticed him. He had changed a lot since she had last seen him. He was in his 40s, but he looked great for his age, tall, fit, with confidence in every step. His smile when he greeted her father was wide and sincere, but at the same time restrained. Nia suddenly realized that he was no longer the uncle she remembered from childhood. He was now a mature, attractive man. Nia's father greeted Marcus warmly, exchanging a firm handshake with him and starting a conversation full of memories. Nia, not wanting to get too involved in adult conversation, stayed away, but something about Marcus made her feel curious. The moment their gazes crossed, she suddenly felt a slight excitement. Marcus noticed her gaze too and smiled.
Nia? Is it really you? I remember you as a girl, and now you're an adult.
Yes, it's been a long time. You've been missing for a few years, but I'm glad to see you again.
He walked up to her and held out his hand to greet her.
Well, I was busy with business, working in another city. But now I'm back, hopefully for a long time. It's nice to see that you've grown into such a beautiful and confident girl.
These words took Nia by surprise. She hadn't expected such compliments, especially from Marcus, who was just her father's friend to her. But there was something sincere in his voice that aroused a pleasant excitement in her. He didn't look like an ordinary family friend. His presence suddenly became significant to her.
Thank you. I remember how you and Dad were always inseparable. You were like a brother to him.
Yes, your father and I have been through a lot together. Our paths have parted for a while, but I'm glad that now we can keep in touch again.
The conversation continued casually. Nia noticed that it was easy for her to talk to Marcus. He turned out to be a surprisingly pleasant companion. They discussed a lot of topics, how her last few years have been, where she went to study, what she is interested in. Marcus listened attentively to every word she said, and it was pleasant. Unlike the other grown men in her father's company, he didn't seem distant or arrogant. He was interested in her as a person, not just as his friend's daughter. Nia realized that she could talk to Marcus about any topic, whether it was her plans for the future or even her fears and doubts. He supported her in conversations, not giving ready-made advice, but simply helping her analyze the situation. It was refreshing and new for her, especially against the background of her communication with peers who rarely showed such a depth of understanding and interest. The evening passed quickly, and by the end of it, Nia noticed that her conversation with Marcus had lasted longer than she had expected. The rest of the guests had already gone home, but they were still standing in the backyard, discussing their lives as if they were old friends who just hadn't seen each other in years. It was amazing to feel such ease in communicating with a man who was almost 20 years older than her. When Marcus was about to leave, he smiled at her again.
I hope we can talk again. You're an amazing conversationalist, Nia.
I hope so too. It was nice talking to you.
They exchanged phone numbers, which was somewhat unexpected for Nia. She didn't know what to expect from this exchange of contacts, but she was interested. That evening, when she went to bed, her thoughts kept returning to their conversation. Something about Marcus attracted her. It wasn't an ordinary attraction, it was the feeling that he understood her like no one else. In the following days, they began exchanging messages. At first they were short, formal messages: how are you? What's new? But over time, their communication became deeper. Marcus was interested in her life, her thoughts, her feelings. He wasn't just asking standard questions, he really wanted to get to know her better. Nia noticed that every time she received a message from Marcus, her heart started beating faster. She was waiting for these conversations. They didn't see each other every day, but their phone conversation became something meaningful for her. She began to realize that their friendship went beyond the usual relationship between a family friend and his best friend's daughter. Personal moments were increasingly appearing in their correspondence. Marcus shared his thoughts about life, how he survived the divorce, about his dreams and disappointments. Nia understood that he trusted her, and this was unusual for her. She felt that an emotional bond was forming between them, which was getting stronger every day. One day, a few weeks after they met at a family event, Marcus suggested they meet outside her father's house. He invited her to dinner, and Nia agreed. At that moment, she realized that their relationship was beginning to go beyond friendship. A mixed feeling arose inside her. On the one hand, she felt that this was wrong, but on the other, she was drawn to Marcus more and more. When they met, Nia realized that their bond had become much deeper. It wasn't just a conversation between an adult man and a girl, it was something more. And although she couldn't quite understand her feelings, one thing was clear: Marcus was no longer just her father's friend to her. After their first meeting at a family event, Nia couldn't get Marcus out of her mind. Their communication was too natural and pleasant to forget the next day. She was surprised at how easy and free it was to talk to him as an equal, despite their age difference. Marcus showed interest in her thoughts, listened attentively, and did not impose his opinion. Unlike her peers, who often perceived conversations as a way to express themselves, Marcus always asked the right questions and waited for an answer, sincerely interested in her answers. It's been a week since their first meeting, and they started texting more often. At first, they were simple messages about everyday life. Then gradually their conversations became more personal. Nia hadn't expected to start sharing such deep thoughts with him. But Marcus created such a sense of security around her that she couldn't resist being frank. One evening, after a long day at work, Nia decided to invite Marcus for coffee. It was a spontaneous decision, but she felt that they had long since ceased to be just acquaintances. When he agreed, her heart began to beat faster, and she felt a slight excitement that she could not explain. They met in a cozy cafe near her house, and as usual, the conversation began easily and naturally.
How was your day? You look a little tired.
Nia thought for a moment before answering. She really felt tired, not only physically but also emotionally.
It's been a long day. Work, as always, takes a lot of energy. But that's not what worries me. Sometimes I feel like I'm standing still. It's like my life is like this, going in cells, without any special meaning.
Marcus stared at her intently, not interrupting.
I understand what you're talking about. There are moments when it seems that the world around you is moving, but you are standing still, like a spectator against the background of a big performance. But what exactly is stopping you?
These words made Nia think. She knew Marcus was right, but what exactly her problem was, she couldn't quite articulate.
It's probably fear. The fear of doing something wrong or not the way I'm expected to do it. I've always been the one who follows the rules, tries to conform. And now, I'm just tired of it.
It's a normal feeling. Over time, we all begin to realize that living for the sake of other people's expectations is not something that brings happiness. Sometimes you need to learn to be selfish in a good way.
Nia smiled at his words. She had never thought that it was okay to be a little selfish. She was always taught to think about others, to be the one who puts other people's interests above her own. But now, as she listened to Marcus, she began to realize that there was truth in what he was saying. Their conversation continued throughout the evening, and despite the personal topics, Nia did not feel awkward. She began to realize that Marcus was not just a person with life experience, but someone who really understood her inner world. She could share her innermost thoughts with him without fear of condemnation or misunderstanding. In the following weeks, their meetings became regular. Marcus turned out to be not just a pleasant companion, but someone for whom Nia began to feel deep respect and even admiration. He talked about his life path, about the difficulties and decisions he had to make. His story was not easy. It was years of struggle, victories and defeats, but in each of his stories she saw the wisdom that he had gained through experience. One day, during their next meeting, Marcus told her about his divorce. This was unexpected for Nia, because she had never thought that Marcus could go through such personal difficulties.
My divorce was the most difficult period in my life. We were together for 15 years, but then our paths parted. We just stopped understanding each other.
Nia listened attentively without interrupting.
It was painful, but I realized that sometimes you need to let go of something that no longer brings happiness. We were both unhappy, and staying together for the sake of habit would be wrong.
These words affected Nia. She saw in Marcus not just a man who had gone through difficulties, but a man who was able to maintain his integrity and dignity despite the upheavals of life. She began to notice that her attitude towards Marcus had changed. Now she saw in him not just a family friend, but a man who had a unique outlook on life. He understood her better than many of her peers. His words made her think, and his presence gave her a sense of security and comfort. Nia was aware that these feelings went beyond the ordinary friendship, but she didn't know how to feel about it. Her inner world began to change. Now, every time she thought about Marcus, she felt a little nervous. These feelings were new and frightening, because he was older than her father's friend, a man who should not have occupied such a place in her heart. But every time they met, Nia realized that her attraction to him was getting stronger. Marcus, in turn, also began to open up to her more and more. He shared his thoughts about life, how important it is to be true to yourself and your desires, how not to be afraid to change and accept the challenges of fate. He supported her in the most difficult thoughts and never gave her ready-made solutions. Instead, he helped her find answers inside herself. On one such evening, they were sitting in the park watching the sunset. The atmosphere was calm and the conversation flowed smoothly as usual. For the first time, Nia felt that there was more between them than just friendship. This moment was filled with silence and understanding, and she realized that she could no longer ignore her feelings.
Have you ever felt that your life is not going the way you planned, but there is something good about it?
Marcus thought for a moment before answering.
My life has never gone according to plan, but sometimes it is in the unpredictability of life that its beauty lies. We meet people who change us, events that make us reconsider our views.
Nia knew that he wasn't just talking about life in general. His words had a hidden meaning that they both understood. Their relationship was no longer just a friendship between her father's old friend and a young woman. It was something more, something they both felt but didn't say out loud. This evening was a turning point for Nia. She realized that her feelings for Marcus were not just sympathy or respect. It was something deeper. But how can she admit it? And how would Marcus take her confession? Gradually, Nia began to realize that her feelings for Marcus went beyond the usual friendship. At first, she didn't pay attention to how happy she was about their meetings and correspondence, but soon her attraction to him became more obvious. Her emotions changed every time he was around. He was no longer just Uncle Marcus, the family friend she had known since childhood. Now he was a mature, wise, and incredibly interesting man for whom she felt something completely new. When Nia met with him, she felt her heart begin to beat faster, and the excitement inside her grew. She felt calmer and happier in his presence than ever. Their conversations became an important part of her life, and every time they exchanged messages or met in person, she felt a deeper connection between them. They could discuss everything from life's difficulties to dreams, which they shared with ease and sincerity. It was an unusual connection that she couldn't explain. However, This feeling of deep affection scared her at the same time. She understood that their relationship could no longer be considered an ordinary friendship. Marcus became the person she felt she belonged with, and she began to realize that she had romantic feelings for him. These emotions were growing every day, and Nia couldn't ignore them. She wondered how she could fall in love with a man who was much older than her, besides being her father's friend. Each of their new interactions only intensified her feelings. When Marcus touched her hand during a conversation or looked her straight in the eye, she felt different. His touch stirred her a little, and his gaze said more than just words. Nia understood that this was not just a casual sympathy, but something deeper and more complex. She couldn't stop thinking about him even when they were apart. In the evenings when she went to bed, her thoughts always returned to Marcus. Nia analyzed their every conversation, recalled his words and gestures, and the realization that she was in love with him took root in her heart more and more. And more. At first it scared her because he was older, he was a friend of her father, and she knew that society would not accept such a relationship. But her feelings were real, and they were getting stronger. Nia understood that she needed to sort out her emotions. She began to notice that her behavior had changed. She became more thoughtful and tense in the presence of Marcus. Sometimes she found herself studying his face, his smile, his gestures with special attention, as if trying to memorize every moment. Her affection for him had become so obvious that she was afraid Marcus would notice it. From time to time, Nia asked herself what she should do next. She knew she couldn't just ignore her feelings, but she also understood that admitting to them could destroy what had already been built between them. She was afraid that if she opened up to him, Marcus would push her away, believing that this was just a youth hobby. He was older, more experienced, and might never take her seriously. But on the other hand, Nia couldn't keep pretending that her feelings were just friendly affection. When they met again, her thoughts only confirmed what she had long been aware of. Marcus wasn't just her friend, he was the person she wanted to be with. His maturity and life experience, his ability to understand her without unnecessary words, all this made her even more attracted to him. She could no longer see him as a family friend. Her heart skipped a beat every time he was around. One day they met in a small cafe, as usual, to talk. But Nia felt that something had changed this time. Her heart was beating faster, and it became difficult for her to focus on the conversation. Marcus, as always, was calm and confident in his conversation. But that day Nia found herself thinking that she wanted to say something, but she did not know how to express her feelings correctly. She couldn't just admit that her affection for him had grown into something more. She began to wonder how Marcus felt about her. Is it possible that he sees in her not only the daughter of his friend, but a woman who shares his views and thoughts? It seemed to her that there were sometimes hints in his behavior that he also felt something more. But she was afraid of making a mistake. If he rejected her, it would be a blow not only to their friendship, but also to her inner world. Nia couldn't stop thinking that there could have been more between them. She didn't know how to deal with this storm of emotions. Her feelings for Marcus had not been just friendly for a long time, but how could she admit it? How to take the first step if she is not sure of his answer? Every day spent thinking only increased her attraction, but at the same time added to her anxiety. Marcus didn't seem to notice these changes in her behavior, or just didn't show that he suspected anything. He remained the same calm, wise and confident man he had always been. It only attracted her more. Her youthful fears and doubts that he might never take her seriously intensified, but at the same time the desire to be with him became stronger. Nia began to analyze every moment spent with him more and more often. Her affection for Marcus was becoming more and more obvious, and she knew that soon she would have to do something. It couldn't go on forever. Her feelings couldn't stay hidden. Every day she felt more and more that she was on the verge of admitting that her heart had long belonged to him. Her inner conflict was intensifying. Nia understood that her feelings did not correspond to social norms and expectations. He was older, much older, and her father would never have approved of such a relationship. But every time she thought about Marcus, those thoughts receded into the background. All that mattered to her was how she felt when she was with him. Her attraction was genuine and strong, and she couldn't deny it anymore. Now the only question remained, was she ready to take a step towards these feelings? It all started one evening when Marcus and Nia met, as usual, in a cozy cafe where they often spent time together. This day wasn't anything special, but the tension that had been in the air for a long time became unbearably obvious. Each time their communication became more personal and deep, they began to open up to each other in a way they had never before. Evening conversations about life, dreams and difficulties became an integral part of their communication, and Nia could no longer imagine her life without these moments. But something changed that night. The conversation, which began as usual with a discussion of work and everyday worries, gradually turned into a more emotional and intense sphere. Nia noticed that Marcus was looking at her differently than usual. His gaze was focused and full of feelings which he tried to hide. At some point they fell silent, and this silence was filled with unspoken words and emotions. Nia had long understood that her feelings for Marcus went beyond friendship, but she had never dared to say it out loud. Her inner conflict between social norms and real feelings was tearing her apart from the inside. She knew that there was a huge gap between them, the difference in age, status and their family ties. But something this evening told her that they could no longer hide their emotions. The moment Marcus touched her arm, a light, almost casual touch, she realized that this was the turning point. It wasn't just a friendly gesture, it was an expression that he also felt something more for her. Nia felt a wave of emotions rising inside her that she could no longer contain. They continued to talk, but the conversation was filled with hidden meanings. Nia admitted that it is difficult for her to find a place in this world where she would feel understood. She talked about how tired she was of shallow relationships with peers who couldn't offer her the depth she was looking for. Marcus listened to her, as always, attentively and seriously, but this time his gaze was more focused than usual. He seemed to understand her on some deeper level, and this created a sense of special intimacy between them. When Nia stopped talking, Marcus took a step towards her. He cautiously but firmly admitted that for a long time he had felt something more than just friendly affection for her. His words were full of doubt and caution. He was aware of how their relationship could be perceived by society, and how it could affect her life and reputation. But despite that, he couldn't ignore his feelings anymore. For Nia, this moment was a release. She had always been afraid to admit to herself that she loved him, but now that Marcus had also opened up, she felt better. Her heart, which had been torn between duty and feelings for so long, finally found peace. But along with this came the realization that their relationship should remain a secret. They both understood that the age difference and their social roles would not allow their relationship to be accepted by others. Nia's father would never approve of such a relationship, and Marcus, being a family friend, risked losing not only friendship, but also respect. Their relationship was too risky and could destroy everything they had built in their lives. But the desire to be together was stronger than the fear of public condemnation. Their first step towards a relationship was quiet and restrained. They agreed that they would keep their relationship a secret. It was not an easy decision, but they saw no other way out. They understood that they had to hide their feelings from everyone, from family, friends, and society. Every meeting now became a secret. Every conversation filled with meanings and desires that they could not express openly. At first it was just affection, but soon their feelings became deeper and stronger. Nia found something in Marcus that she had never been able to find in her peers: his maturity, his wisdom, and the ability to understand her on a deeper level. Her attraction to him was genuine, and she could no longer deny that she loved him. Marcus, in turn, felt their connection fill him with life and meaning, which he lacked so much. They began to spend more time together, but their every meeting was surrounded by caution. They chose places where no one knew them, and always made sure that their connection remained hidden. This added spice to their relationship, but also made it more tense. Nia often wondered how long they would be able to keep this secret, and what would happen if their relationship became known. Every time they met, Nia felt their bond grow stronger. She saw Marcus not just as a man, but as her partner, someone who understood and supported her. Their relationship was filled with emotional depth, which she had always lacked in previous relationships. She could no longer imagine her life without him, but she knew that their future remained in question. Marcus, despite his inner doubts, couldn't stay away any longer either. He understood that their relationship was contrary to social norms, but his love for Nia was too strong to ignore it. He saw in her not just a young woman, but a person who inspired him and gave him a new purpose in life. Despite his maturity, Marcus felt that next to Nia he was regaining his youth and energy. Their secret relationship became increasingly intense. They often met in secluded places where they could be together, discussed plans for the future, dreamed about how they could be together openly. But every time reality brought them back to earth, they realized that this was not yet possible. The mystery of their connection became both a source of joy and pain. Nia and Marcus tried to keep control of their emotions in public. Every time they met surrounded by other people, they pretended that there was nothing special between them. They were just friends, and no one guessed that deep feelings were hidden behind it. But it wasn't easy for them. Every time they looked at each other, it was difficult to contain their emotions. Secret meetings that once brought them joy have also become a source of stress. Nia was often afraid that someone she knew would see them together and everything would become known. Her relationship with her father, who always trusted her, also began to become more complicated. She couldn't tell him what was going on, but every time he mentioned Marcus, she was filled with fear. Despite this, Nia and Marcus couldn't give up on their feelings. Their love became a part of their lives, and they both knew that this was not a temporary infatuation, but something more. They understood that sooner or later they would have to make a choice, either tell everyone the truth or continue to hide. But for now they were enjoying the moments they could spend together, trying not to think about what the future held for them. Every evening when they parted after another secret meeting, Nia felt happy and at the same time excited. She knew that their love did not fit into the framework of society, but it was sincere and real, and that was the most important thing for her. When Nia and Marcus's secret relationship was suddenly revealed, Nia's life changed dramatically. Her father found out about them completely by accident. He wasn't looking for any evidence. He didn't suspect anything, he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It happened when one evening Nia and Marcus decided to meet in a secluded place, away from the eyes of acquaintances. They chose a park on the outskirts of the city, where it was usually deserted, but this time their privacy was violated by the person whom Nia would have been afraid to meet at this moment the most: father. Nia's father was shocked to see his daughter in such a close relationship with his best friend. He stood there in disbelief, not understanding what was happening. Nia noticed him too late. She didn't know what to do, how to explain it all. Everything was mixed up in her head: fear, guilt, and the desire to protect what she felt for Marcus. My father's reaction was immediate. He did not sort things out on the spot, did not raise his voice, but his eyes betrayed everything: anger, resentment, and disappointment. At that moment, Nia felt that something between them, father and daughter, had not just broken, but had collapsed to the ground. He left without saying a word, leaving her standing with Marcus in a silence filled with despair. After this event, serious conflicts began. Nia's father believed that her relationship with Marcus was a betrayal. Betrayal not only towards him, but also towards their family. In his eyes, Marcus had violated the sacred trust that had existed between them for many years. The father could not accept that his best friend, the man he considered a brother, could be attracted to his daughter. This thought seemed unacceptable to him, and he was not going to put up with it. When Nia returned home, she had a difficult conversation with her father. He was full of anger and frustration, his voice trembling with emotion. He accused her of destroying their family and the friendship he had built all his life. He couldn't understand how his daughter could do such a thing. It was a huge blow to him, and he was not shy about expressing his indignation. Nia didn't know how to react. She felt torn between her feelings for Marcus and her duty to her family. Her father was an important person to her, and she always tried to meet his expectations. But now she was faced with a choice she couldn't make without pain. She knew that her relationship with Marcus did not fit into the framework of norms and traditions, but her love for him was real, and she could not just give it up. The conflict with her father became one of the most difficult moments in her life for Nia. She often recalled how their relationship was strong and full of trust. Her father had always been an example to her that she looked up to, but now it all collapsed. Her father insisted that she stop seeing Marcus. He demanded that she put everything back in its place, stop this absurdity, and live as a young girl should, in his opinion. But Nia couldn't go back. Her feelings were too strong, and she knew that if she went along with her father, she would betray herself. Society has not been left out either. When their relationship became known, Nia found herself under the scrutiny of not only her family, but also friends, acquaintances, and neighbors. Rumors spread quickly, and soon her whole life turned into a topic for discussion and condemnation. She became the object of gossip, and every step was accompanied by sidelong glances and disapproving remarks. Her friends, who had previously supported her in everything, now began to distance themselves. Some said bluntly that she was wrong, that such a relationship was impossible and unacceptable. Others simply stopped communicating with her, not wanting to get involved with a person who, in their opinion, violated moral and social norms. It was a real challenge for Nia. She has lost the support of those who used to be close to her. Her inner world was torn between love and a sense of duty to her family and society. She was constantly tormented by doubts. Was she doing the right thing? Was it worth continuing this relationship with Marcus? She wondered if she would ever be able to find happiness in such conditions. Marcus, despite the condemnation and pressure from all sides, stayed close. He understood that their relationship was now under attack, but he wasn't going to give up on Nia. It was difficult for him to realize that he had caused a rift between Nia and her father, but he believed that their love was worth all these difficulties. However, Marcus also faced condemnation. His friends, colleagues, acquaintances could not understand how he could be attracted to a young girl who was also the daughter of his best friend. His reputation was also under threat, and every day he felt pressure from society. Despite this, Marcus continued to support Nia. They knew that their path would not be easy, but they did not want to give up. In moments of despair, they found solace in each other, realizing that their love was the only thing that gave them the strength to move forward. But that didn't mean it was easy. Nia often returned home in tears, feeling guilty about her father, who refused to talk to her after he found out about her relationship with Marcus. She knew she was hurting him, but at the same time she knew she couldn't give up on her feelings. Internal doubts plagued Nia every day. She was thinking about what would happen next. How long will they be able to withstand this pressure? Will her father ever be able to forgive her? And how long can she continue to live in conditions of constant condemnation from others? Her life turned into a struggle for the right to love, which did not meet public expectations. Every conversation with Marcus brought her some comfort, but the problem did not go away. They both knew that they could not hide forever and live in a state of constant conflict with others. But despite all the obstacles, Nia couldn't imagine her life without Marcus. He was the person she felt real with, and their love was more important to her than anything in the world. She understood that her choice jeopardized her relationship with her family, her reputation, and her future, but to abandon Marcus meant betraying herself and her feelings. The condemnation from society, family, and friends became a daily struggle for her, but she knew that this was her path, and only she could decide how to go through it. After months of intense condemnation and internal strife, Nia and Marcus decided they would not back down. Their love, despite all the obstacles and criticism, has become their only support in a world full of disapproval and distrust. In every step, every look, and every conversation, they found the strength to move on. Both understood that they would encounter obstacles in their path, but they were ready to fight for their feelings. The first task they had to face was to restore trust in their relationship with Nia's father. She knew that their relationship with him would never be the same, but she believed that in time he would be able to understand her choice. Nia's father, under the weight of disappointment and resentment, refused to even talk to her for a long time. Any attempt to explain was met with silence or harsh reproaches. But Nia wasn't going to give up. She decided not to avoid difficulties, but on the contrary, slowly, step by step, to try to establish contact. In conversations with her father, she no longer tried to justify herself. Instead, Nia openly told him about her feelings for Marcus. She talked about how their relationship helped her grow, how she found in Marcus not only support, but also a real partner. These conversations didn't always go smoothly. Her father often said that she was making a mistake, that their relationship was unacceptable, but Nia remained firm. She wanted him to see her not as a stubborn daughter who violated the traditions of the family, but as an adult woman who makes her own choices. Gradually, the father began to soften. Deep down, he still couldn't accept that his best friend had become his daughter's partner, but his love for Nia didn't allow him to turn away from her forever. Over time, he began to listen to her arguments. It was difficult for him to admit that perhaps he was wrong in his categorical attitude, but his love for his daughter and her perseverance did their job. He did not immediately agree to meet with Marcus again, but made it clear to Nia that he was ready to discuss the situation without anger and condemnation. When Nia's father finally agreed to talk to Marcus, it was an important step towards reconciliation. The meeting was intense, but important. Marcus, realizing the depth of Nia's father's displeasure, did not try to justify himself. Instead, he openly said that he really appreciates and loves Nia, that their relationship is not based on passion or a passing infatuation, but on respect and mutual support. His father, though not immediately, began to see the sincerity in Marcus's words. This did not lead to instant acceptance, but it was the beginning of a long road to understanding. Nia and Marcus continued to build their relationship despite public condemnation. They were still met with sidelong glances and disapproval from some friends and acquaintances. Many considered their relationship strange, and some openly said that it was unacceptable. However, over time, people around began to notice that their love was not like something temporary. They saw that Nia and Marcus sincerely support each other, that their relationship, despite external difficulties, is filled with warmth and care. Some of Nia's friends who had initially turned away from her began to return to her life. They saw that she was happy, and although they did not understand her choice at first, they gradually began to respect her decision. They realized that there is no place for strict limits and stereotypes in life, especially when it comes to love. Gradually, more and more people began to accept their relationship, if not with approval, but at least with understanding. Their views changed when it became clear that their bond was based on deep respect and affection. Nia and Marcus have become stronger together thanks to this public pressure. They had to defend their feelings in front of others, and this only strengthened their relationship. Every time they faced criticism or condemnation, they found solace in each other. Marcus has become a real support for Nia. His maturity and life experience helped her cope with inner doubts, and Nia, in turn, inspired Marcus with her youth and energy. They began to make joint plans for the future, realizing that their path would not be easy. But now that they had overcome the first wave of condemnation, they felt more confident. Their love has become for them not just a personal feeling, but a symbol of overcoming prejudice. They realized that their connection could inspire other people to defy public expectations and find happiness where it seems impossible. Over time, even Nia's father began to accept their relationship. He still couldn't fully accept that his best friend had become her partner, but his love for his daughter and her happiness became more important to him than social norms and stereotypes. He started seeing Marcus not as a friend, but as someone who really cares about his daughter. It wasn't an easy process, but seeing how happy Nia was with Marcus, her father began to realize that his own prejudices shouldn't ruin her life. Nia and Marcus continued to build their lives together, no longer hiding from others. Their relationship became open, and although they still met with condemnation from some people, they were no longer afraid of it. They realized that their love is not something that can be hidden or changed because of other people's opinions. Now they were sure that their bond was strong and capable of overcoming any obstacles. Their common life has become an example for others of how to overcome difficulties and go against stereotypes. People began to respect them for their courage and perseverance. They proved that true love has no age limits, that it can overcome any social barriers and prejudices. Their story became a reminder that happiness comes when you stay true to yourself and your feelings, despite all the difficulties. Now Nia and Marcus lived openly, enjoying every minute they spent together. They found in their love the strength that helped them cope with any challenges. Their connection has become not just a personal happiness, but a source of inspiration for other people. Nia felt that she had made the right choice, despite all the obstacles that stood in their way. Accepting a relationship with Marcus was not an easy step, but it brought Nia not only love, but also self-confidence. She learned to fight for her happiness and realized that the most important thing is to be honest with herself. Marcus, in turn, found a second youth in this relationship, getting a chance at love, which he no longer expected to find. Together they overcame all difficulties and began to build their future, free from judgments and stereotypes, confident that their love is worth all the trials.